Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Laughter for All. This is Comedian Nazareth, and thank you for joining me for this December cold. California is cold here. It's about 59, 58. We're freezing here, people. So if you have any wood that you don't need, you can mail it to us. I'm in Corona, California. I can really use that because here in California, we don't cut trees because we love trees. Anyway, so send us your wood if you can. Thank you for joining me. Episode 155 weeks together. I love it. Thank you for being with us. What did I do this last week? You know what? I was home, Christmas time. So I did couple things, events locally, and I'm doing one tomorrow locally. But New Year's Eve, I will be at Calvary Chapel, Chino Valley. It's a big, big church doing a Christmas Eve. So not Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve, my name is Nazareth. I'll be with Jesus, hanging out with Jesus for Christmas, and my family, of course. But after that, New Year's Eve, I'm doing Calvary Chapel of the Chino Valley in Southern California. Locally, nice. Every year I have to be somewhere around the world for New Year's. This year, I'm local. So good. All right. I don't want to take much time because this next guest, I love this guy. I met him briefly for 2 dates. We did 2 dates, on their tour, and they were in Colorado, and I got to meet him, a humble man. And when I read his credit, I'm like, this guy doesn't need to be humble, but he is. And very talented, gifted. You should see the audience when he was singing. Just the audience, the look. They're excited, and they're standing on their feet, but they're also it's worship, but it's music. It's amazing. I can't explain it. So let me introduce him. uh Chris Cleveland, Stars Go Dim. It was formed in 2007 as a mainstream pop band. Today, Stars Go Dim is a moniker for Christian pop artist and songwriter Chris Cleveland. After years at the helm of an acclaimed independent secular band and more than a decade leading worship at Tulsa's Asbury United Methodist Church, one of America's largest congregations, Cleveland found success in the Christian format with his self titled debut album. He has garnered multiple international number ones and top five hits at pop and Christian radio, including the massive number one radio smash in the US with You Are Loved. And his songs have been nominated and won multiple awards, including CMT, Nashville Songwriters Association International, Listener's Choice Award, ASCAP, and Billboard Songwriting Award winner, Dove Awards nominated. His songs have hundreds of millions of streams and have been placed in commercials and ads hundreds of times. You have to go listen to You Are Loved because if I put it on the podcast, I'm going to get all this like, oh, you're copyrights and everything. But anyway, I don't care. In addition, Chris has toured the world, written and played with many of the biggest artists in pop and Christian music in the last 15 years, including Justin Bieber, John Mayer, the Go Go Dolls, Elton John, Billy Joel, Lauren Daigle, For King and Country, and countless more. All right, I will stop there and please welcome my new friend, a talented man, Mr. Chris Cleveland. Thank you for being with me. Okay, now I
Man,
can't
that
hear
sounds
him.
good when it comes out all together like that.
It
It's
does.
crazy. Can you hear
Yes,
me?
I can hear you
Okay,
perfectly. How are
good.
you?
Yeah, I
Uh, you're in Tulsa,
I don't think
Oklahoma?
I hear that. I'm in Franklin, Tennessee. I'm from Tulsa. So I grew up in Oklahoma and about 5 years ago my family and I moved here to so if you've ever been here, Franklin is about half an hour south of Nashville. It's where all the Christian music artists move if you have kids because the schools are really good. So we all moved down here and so this is actually part of my house. This is my studio here and if you could see behind the camera, I've got like
That's a huge house, sir.
bunch of guitars and pianos and amps and all the kind of stuff here. And so my kids are going to sleep downstairs and I'm just hanging out with y'all up here. So yeah, here we
Yeah.
are, Franklin,
Y'all,
Tennessee.
see, that's not Oklahoma. Y'all, that's Nashville.
Y'all is Oklahoma for sure. Oh yeah.
Oh, is it? I thought it was like Nashville or Southern.
I mean, Oklahoma's pretty country if you've ever been there.
I've been there. I've been all over. I love going to Biscuit Love in Franklin, Tennessee. I've done all my tours in the past when I used to tour and a tour bus came out of the Kroger
Yeah.
and there my management was in Nashville. So I've been to Nashville so many times and Franklin and Brentwood. So I love it. The
Oh,
only reason
I can walk to Biscuit Love from my house, so it's a little bit dangerous.
oh, it's beautiful. I
Close.
love eating there. Yes. And then you go to the Love Cafe by the bridge.
I don't think I've been there.
You should go. It's beautiful bridge. You'll probably write a song
Check it
about
out.
it. Have you always been musical? Have you always been musical, Chris?
Yeah, I grew up in a musical family. So my parents were in a gospel group that traveled around and sang, and they would just do like little revivals in churches, and then they'd throw me and my brother up, and we started singing at a really young age, 2, 3, 4 years old, on stage with my parents singing songs. And so then I started playing piano for the church when I was 10. My dad's mom, my grandma, she was a songwriter as well. I actually have,
Oh,
if you see on my back wall, I've got some of her songs that she wrote framed. So I see them every day when I come in. And she got me piano lessons when I was 10. I started playing the piano at church. My mom was the music director. And so that's also when I started traveling and playing when I was 10 years old. And so now I've been doing that 27 years. So
wow.
almost 28. I turn 38 here in a couple months. So
Oh,
yeah,
you're
it's kind of been on both sides of the family, and people kind of all over, and somehow I'm been doing it since I was 10 and never stopped.
what would you think you would be doing if you were not musical? What do you think you would be doing, Chris?
Oh, now I don't know. I used to, like, when I was in school, I love basketball, so I played basketball into college. Um, and then I was also really good at school. So I thought, well, I'll be a doctor, I'll go to the NBA, or I will, uh, play music. And so I went to school for a long time and realized that I didn't want to go to school anymore. My brother got diagnosed with diabetes when I was in high school, and I couldn't give him the shots, and I was like, well, if I can't do the shots, I don't think I can be a doctor. So I kind
Right.
of bowed out of the doctor thing, and so I couldn't decide when I was in college. So I wound up with like 5 or 6 associate's degree. Just kept doing. I was like, well, let me try chemistry, let me try business, let me try economics, let me try psychology and music and all these things. And so I would get an associate's degree and then kind of move to something else to see if I liked it. And finally, I've been going to school for, I don't know, 6 years or so. I was like, okay, I just got to get done because I'd been playing basketball. I gotten hurt, and that dream was kind of done. And so music had taken over in a big way. And I was basically trying to finish college and tour full time musically. And so
Mm.
I picked psychology, and I finished with a degree in psychology and education.
So
And after, I think I started 6 years, so I took a lot of classes. And
so
then
you
by the
were
time I
when you were
graduated,
still in
I was
college.
touring full time with Stars Go Dim.
Wow. So you were just out of
Yeah,
college or in the middle of
I
college
started
you
Stars Go Dim in
2007, right?
2007, and I started working at a church called Very United Methodist, where I worked for a decade. I started at the University of Tulsa, where I eventually graduated, and I started Stars Go Dim all in August of 2007. And so that month was a pretty pivotal month for like the rest of life. Everything kind of took there. So yeah,
So you were touring and being a worship leader at Asbury at the same time?
I did it for years and years. So, and going to school. So once I graduated school, then touring kind of took off. So that year, that was actually the year I met my wife. I did 300 shows in 10 months. And so I was gone every single day, doing multiple shows. Sometimes in a day, we would wake up and we go play the news station in the morning, and then we go to a children's hospital and do an event, and then we would play a show at night. And we did that multiple times a week, all country. And so I would fly or drive in and get back to church in time to do worship, and then I get back on a plane or in a car on a bus and head out. And it's kind of the craziest years of my life. I think I was about 23 then, and I kept that up touring and at the church the whole time I was there for 10 years.
Now, how many members did you have with Stars Go Dim?
We started as a four-piece band, and it was like a mainstream pop band. So that's why you see some of those credits with some of those pop artists and
Mm.
mainstream artists. And so that was kind of the first version. It was a real band, and we were a side project off of another band. And so there were four of us. And then slowly that kind of changed. And long story short, it kind of blew up in a crazy way. One of the members had stolen a bunch of money, and it became a legal issue and all this kind of stuff. And I kind of thought Stars was going to be done. I thought that that would just be it. And so I was leading worship at the church. I got married, started having a family, and then I came back to Nashville and met with some labels here, and wound up signing a Christian record deal. And then have had probably more people than I could count or remember play in various positions for me over the last 15 years. I mean, I bet you I've had 40 drummers and 30 guitar players and so many people who've been a part of this thing in different capacities. And some guys, a lot of guys will hang a couple of years and then move on to something else in their life.
Right.
I had a really great team together before COVID hit, and then COVID kind of, caused us not to have any work, and so different guys had to do different things there, and
Right.
so we've had a lot of different things just depending on the season. So this year I've done a lot of things just solo, which is the first time I've done that actually. But
Mm.
I've had different guys at different times.
Now, let's go back when you guys did 300 shows. You did 300 shows in 10 months. Now, I'm a
Yep.
comedian. I work on my own. I tour on my own. I fly on my own. I get there on my own. What is it like to working with other people that you have to deal with their egos, their fears, their schedule and stuff, and being on the road for 300 shows? What was that like?
It's that much travel is crazy. And I'll never, ever, ever do it again, and I don't think I could do it again. Um, One of the craziest things about traveling that far, I didn't know what year it was. Not just day, month, like, I didn't know years. And so, because it was just, going so crazy. I had a close friend, and I remember it was the holidays, something like this, and we're at a holiday party, and I his wife had been pregnant, and I said, "Oh, when is the baby due?" And he looked at me, and he's like, "Man, he's like 10 months old." And it just hit me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I am out of my mind," you know? And so that's where you are mentally when you're traveling that much. And
Uh,
and and probably long story short, there's a reason why it's only me at this point. So it's not easy to be in a band. It's not
oh
easy
yeah,
to manage those egos. It's not easy to make a living for that many people. Even in Christian music now, you have to make a lot of money to support 3, 4 households.
yes,
Our overhead and things like that are so high that to make kind of an average American living, you've gotta be grossing millions of dollars. And that's not easy. So, it's not always fun. It's not always the easiest thing. And so that's honestly why it makes it much easier for me to be able to bring guys in when I need them, and pay them as kind of contract workers than keeping people on salary all the time. It lets me be more flexible, lets me be able to take care of my family.
right.
And those guys are free to go get more work and do that kind of thing for themselves as well.
Right. You don't feel obligated to take care of their, families and finances because they can get some other work. Someone asked a question, and I will get back to that. Is what did Chris do to make it through the pandemic, the 2020 and such? What were you doing when everything was shut down? Okay, I think we are having a little. Okay, I think the Wi-Fi is just
I think for a second. There it
okay.
goes.
Yeah, all right now. You got you got the question. What did you do to make it through the pandemic?
What
Okay,
did I do to
Wi-Fi.
make it through the pandemic?
Yes.
Um, I a bunch of, but actually, I'm kind of a worker, so I'm a 3 Enneagram, which means I find value in achieving things. So I can't sit on my hands very long. And so I did a bunch of drive-in shows. I actually took the
Uh-huh.
biggest production that I've taken out, and I did one run back home in Oklahoma and tried it out. And there was something I wanted to do for a long time, which was one, play a whole year for free. And when the pandemic came up, I said, "Oh, maybe this is an opportunity for me to do that." And so I reached out to Food for the Hungry, where my wife actually works, and they partnered with me to help me be able to do that. And so I was able to cover all my expenses, my crew and my guys to be able to go and do the shows. And then I just asked wherever we were to give a love offering. And so I did that in a few shows in Oklahoma, and people were so generous and showed up. And I wasn't and still not of the mind that I felt like if you put the effort in, that you could go and you could worship and you could do these things. And so what I did is I went through all the health departments. I got all the permits. I talked to all of the people that I needed to. I got all the approvals and went through the cities, and it was a little more work. But I never had an issue with any city. I never had an issue with COVID. I never had any of that stuff that I think people try to politicize sometimes.
Yeah.
There were some artists going around talking about how like worship was there was kind of a war on worship and people weren't letting us do that. And honestly, in my opinion, they were just lazy and they didn't want to follow the rules. So I had no issue. So I went and I did 40 shows that way, and I did every single one of them for free.
Wow,
And
God bless.
we would show up, set up. We brought everything, and we did nights of worship. And it was one of the best seasons of my career, honestly. And at the end of the year, when all was said and done, it was one of the most successful years that I'd ever had. And so I kind of took a step back from that and thought, oh, I think I've been doing this wrong for years. And so in 2021, I took 6 months completely off, and I did a very similar model. And again, one of the best years I've ever had. So this year, 2022, um, uh, I decided I would just do one weekend a month. And so I came in and I wouldn't book any of it myself. I wouldn't try to go get shows. I wouldn't try to create something to happen. I would let it come to me, kind of as an exercise of killing the drive in me that kind of makes me go crazy. And so we got those shows one week in a month. We did the tour where I met you with St. Tim, and I did that tour because we're all just honestly some of my best friends. And so we did 2 months of the year where we went out and toured, and it was just an awesome year. And I've seen my kids grow up for the past 3 years. And I think as long as they're still small and as long as they're still growing up, this is what I'm going to do. And I think I'll probably sacrifice money, but I just don't care. And this has been a system that I've kind of enjoyed, and it's given me some opportunity and some space. I've got a lot of time. So I write for a lot of people here in the studio and do that kind of thing. And so that's kind of what I did over the pandemic, and it really shaped and focused what I'm doing now, even in how I tour now.
You know that I love your heart because I don't know if this is what we have in common. I started a few years ago. I always loved to for my audience to come for free, and
Hmm.
that gives me the freedom to be more artistic and not feel I obligated to do what the promoter wants and all that. So I love your heart with that. I love what you're doing, and you know what? As a father of three, you this is the best decision you can make. You'll always. I decided not to go on tours or go cruise ships when my kids were growing up because I said, you know what? I know I'm gonna make less money. My name is gonna not gonna go up all the way up there, but you know what? I feel so satisfied now that they're a little older. I got a 15-year-old left. I can still now I can go on tour and go and be gone more than a
Mhm.
week if I have to. But I want to ask you this. First of all, you're teasing us with having the piano up there and the microphone, and people think you can say you will sing for us. Can you can you can you do "You Are Loved" real quick without me getting into legal rights or copyrights? No?
Yeah, how long do you get before you have to pay me money?
I will.
Or the label probably. I probably don't
I
make
will.
any money.
I'll give it to you, not the
That
label.
chorus is what yeah. You are alone in your heart's in 1,000 pieces. If you're lost and you're far from reason, just look up, know you are loved. Just look up, know you are loved. When it feels like something's missing, when it hurts but you can't find healing, just look up, know you are loved. Just look up, know you are loved. Yeah, that wasn't long
Wow,
enough to have to
thank
pay
you. That was
anybody, I don't think.
amazing. 235 people love it. That's amazing. Thank you for doing that. I normally never ask artists to do that, but I mean the piano was so appealing, and that song, you hear it on commercials, you hear it on that, and you were working with,
Mhm.
you said you worked with Justin Bieber, Elton John, all these guys. What was it like? I mean, working with Elton John. I mean, what was it like being on tour with that person or performing in the same production? What was that like?
You probably had a bunch of those days, and each artist is different. And some of these guys we've like toured with. Some of them we've played more than one show. Some of them we were like in vicinity of and played the same time or day. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of like what the Elton John thing was. And then the Bieber thing, we used to do all these like at Christmas time, the top 40 pop stations do these things called jingle balls. And
Uh-huh.
and so they do throw these big parties and bring all these artists in. So the Bieber thing was one of those. And gosh, he had to have been 15 or 16. I mean, he was so young then. One of the more fun ones was John Mayer. We did the Mayercraft so he did a cruise, and we did a cruise thing with him, and that was pretty incredible. And he's really, really kind. That was right before the Battle Studies record, so he was playing some of those songs on like acoustic because he'd just written them. Um, I think I hadn't met my wife yet by then. I was about to meet her actually, because when I met her, I started dropping John Mayer's name a bunch, and she didn't believe me.
How did
Uh,
you meet her?
so I
How
was
did
trying to
you meet
impress
her?
her.
How did you
We
meet your wife?
met. I would get home from playing, and my friends would all drag me. It was like never fail. They wouldn't tell me what we were doing. They're just like, "Oh, just come with us," and we'd always wind up somewhere where this local band was playing. It was the same band every time, and it's like I never wanted to go see this band. But for some reason, like the 19th time, I've seen them, my wife, her friend was friends with somebody in the band, and they had come to see them as well. And so when I saw her, I was kind of through. She had me from the beginning. So I started just trying to pull every trick I had, and which I was not that guy. I didn't even tell people what I did, and with her, for some reason, I was really trying to press her, and she didn't believe me at all. She didn't take it or have it, and but I got her phone and put my name in her favorites, and somehow we connected again the next week, and I've been rolling strong now for gosh, been married 11 years and
Uh-huh.
dated a few years before that, so it's been pretty good.
When did she come to the first show and believe that you're a star?
She, was funny, this kinda dates us too. She said she went home after that night, she's like, "This long-haired guy kept telling me that he was on tour with John Mayer," or something like that to her best friend, and her friend was like, "Well, what band is he in?" She says, "Stars Go Dim," and her friend says, "Oh, he's on my iPod," you know? So it kind of, she's like, "Oh, maybe this guy is for real."
And now she
Well,
believes you.
she actually week I think I won a CMT award or something in Nashville, and so it was that year of just craziness. So I was gone and playing a whole bunch.
And now is she's from Nashville, right?
She's from Tulsa, actually. She's from the
Oh.
same town I am, but when we lived outside of Austin, Texas.
Now, when you started going, with these big names and big stars and all that, what was your dream like at that point? What would you dreaming? What would you hoping that would happen at that stage?
I that I had any, honestly. When I was
Mm,
young, I felt like God told me to do music, and I just always wanted to be able to do it and support a family, you know?
mm.
And so I never wanted to be famous. I didn't even wanna be a lead singer.
Oh,
Everything I feel like that I've gotten and had, I have kind of just took the next step, and the doors, just keep opening. Now some may get slammed in my face at some point, but another one is always opened, and so I don't know that I've ever had a big dream or goal or vision for it. I've just kept walking through the doors that were opened.
so what
And so
drives
I
you? I
wasn't
mean,
I
some
wasn't that impressed, to be honest, in any of the other stuff. People are just people and music is music, so, I don't know that I ever got crazy hype on any of it.
I love your attitude. I love, you know what? Just the last 25 minutes, I just like, man, you're amazing. Because when we were on tour, on the two dates together, you were into yourself more. And I as an
Uh,
artist, I respect a different artist mentality. I'm like, okay, maybe his mind is on his kids. Maybe he's just, I don't know what's going on, but
I
uh,
feel like you caught me on that tour when we saw you. It was the longest we'd been out since before COVID, since probably for me 2018. So when we go to West Coast, we stay out, and so that was 3 weeks out, um,
mm.
all in, and so there was about a 4-day stretch, 4 or 5 days there where I was, like, checked out, and that was those I think the days met you were in the checked out days.
Yeah,
So
you
I
can
give
kind of check
everybody
that.
when I meet them on the road.
I respect that. I respected that.
Whenever I meet people on the road, I give them. Yeah, dude. Whenever I meet people on the road, I give them 3 chances because I know that I might catch them on a checkout day, and I'm okay with
uh,
that because I understand it, and I'm like, "Okay, the odds of me catching you on a checkout day 3 times in a row are pretty low, um, so I'll give you I'll give you a few benefits
no,
of the
no, no,
doubt."
no. I was walking in the green room or in that area, and I heard you talking to your kids, and actually started praying for you. And I said, Lord, just let him provide in a way that he can spend as much time with his kids as possible, because
Mm.
that's when you're performing, when you're writing, when you're being an artist, and you really want to be, you're gonna have that piece, that portion where, like, what, my family is. And they have their daddy. They know he's coming home, and in few days, and he's going to be there and all that. That's really important for an artist. But speaking of, how come you came with the name Stars Go Dim? That means, I mean, how what does that mean to you, Stars Go Dim?
It doesn't mean anything. Band names are weird, man. I never thought I'd be pushing 40 and still in a band called Stars Go Dim. Honestly, when we were doing, like, mainstream music, one of the guys in the band just made it up, and, it wasn't even supposed to be a band. We were like a writing side project, and we didn't even really think it would ever become this, and so, we thought we'd maybe record some songs, and that would be it, and then it just took off, and so the idea that this was gonna be a 20-year thing was just not a reality, and so I don't think we thought through the band name very well.
To me, when I heard the name Stars Go Dim, it's like a humility thing. Like, okay, we're stars, but now we are going dim so Christ can be
I'll take
magnified or
that.
something. Yeah, so that's how
That's
I
a
looked at the name. And talking to you the last few minutes with your humility, I'm like, that's how he came up with the name. Stars, I'm a star, but now I'm going dim so the Lord can be glorified. How long does it take you to write a song, and what's your process?
Oh, anywhere from minutes to months, you know?
Wow.
Um, it depends. For me, if I write a song 100% by myself, lately it's been like in the car driving by myself. I write a whole song driving and then voice note like the melody and then come back and I can record it later. A lot of times when people come in here in this room with me to write, I'll do co-writes for other artists and we'll write a song in 3 or 4 hours and demo it here and so by the end of the day we're kind of walking out with the outline, the frame of a song, and but it just depends. And sometimes we'll write and write and write and rewrite and that kind of thing. But usually in Nashville, we can get in and write a song and be done in about a half a day. But I bring a lot of those ideas. So my phone is like chock full of voice notes, thousands of voice notes of ideas and songs, things. And so if I'm kind of in a rut or something like that, I'll go through those through years and years of them, just find things that stick out or may, get me somewhere else. And that inspiration for me comes in different ways and at different times. So I just have to always be ready to later, and if it still catch, then I'll pursue it and try to finish something out or do something like that.
Sometimes I do the same thing as a comedian. I record, but sometimes do you have that sense to know like, oh, this one's gonna go somewhere. This one's gonna be a good one. Do you get that sense, or you never know if the song is gonna make it or not?
I have ones that I like better, and I have ones that I think are great, but that I mean, in 2022, that means literally nothing. So I don't think any of us know what actually like makes a song a hit or not anymore. And I don't think any label does. I don't think any artist does. I don't think, anybody's got a hold of it. And so what we can do is just do our best and then find a place where we feel good about the song living and do that. And so because I write in so many different ways, worship music and pop music and country music and these things, it's like finding where the song will live is almost the hardest part. And so I've got songs on like my last record, Grace in the Wilderness, where it's like, well, I have to be okay with just it being on the record and that's the thing. Or maybe I'm hoping that this worship song can take hold somewhere and do something, or this pop song will get on some playlist and it's a whole thing. But there are songs I've written that I think are amazing that no one will ever hear. There are songs that I've written that I think are like fine that a lot of people have heard. So I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to it.
Have you ever written a song for someone else and go, man, I wish I can have this back, or I would love to sing that one?
Yeah. Mike Donaghy is a singer for 10th Avenue
Oh
North.
yeah,
He released a record this
yes,
past year.
I know
He's got
him
a
good.
song that we wrote called trying to I can't remember the title. Oh, Glory that I Didn't See is what it's called. It is
Uh-huh.
one of my favorite songs I've ever been a part of. It's his song. Like I don't think my voice actually fits the song, um, but I love that song. And so I'm a little bit jealous of that one from him, but I'm glad I got to be a part of it.
What is your wife's most complaint about your career?
About my career,
Yeah,
and uh, probably you want me to be honest about it, and
of
it
course.
probably has nothing to do with me or what I do, but the actual industry and the people that we serve. I think Christians can be a tough crowd sometimes, and this is I'm sure you find this too. Um, so whenever I go and play for somewhere. Typically, and I play in every denomination. I played from Church of Christ to Catholic churches to Assembly of God's, Baptist, all of it, right? And
Uh-huh.
I know my fair share about most. because I've just been in this my whole life. She hasn't. But most places that I show up to, they think I believe the same things they do, which is
Ah,
understandable. They
right.
don't think about it very much. But there's some places, if I'm honest, where I walk into and I think, oh gosh, we have less in common than probably me and some people who don't claim Jesus. Um, and some of that is a really interesting balance to deal with, and I think that's probably the hardest part for her um, in all of it. Without just completely speaking for her in that, because I can't say exactly. And the other hard part is just the time, away. But
Mm,
we've figured a lot of that kind of stuff out. And she's actually part of this industry in a way. She works for a company that supports tours, and they do they're a nonprofit that has feeding and relief programs for children and communities all over the country. And so they fund a lot of that through tours. And so she is involved kind of in that as well. So she understands the business. A lot of people like her probably more than me in this business too, just because she's so awesome. So yeah, there's a couple of things.
okay, now we're in this the honesty path. Oh, are Christian management, producers, record labels, are they as corrupt as the mainstream ones or not?
I don't know. I don't think so. Probably just depends person to person, and I think that's
Mm,
probably true whether you're a Christian or whether you're in mainstream music. I think there's always going to be people, individuals who are greedy or selfish or out for the money or the fame or whatever. I can say that no one on my team is that, but
mm.
also there's something about being this old and still doing this, that if
Oh,
you're not
stop
in
it.
it for
You're
the
a
right
spring
reasons,
chicken. You're a
well,
spring
I
chicken.
you just won't make it to my age in this as a career if you're not a good person and you're not in it
Oh,
for
I
the right
see.
reasons.
I
You know
see.
what I mean?
I see.
Y
Yeah, I know what
One,
you mean,
you'll
right?
quit or you'll lose your opportunities, right? And so, now do are there some greedy people in our industry? Yeah, I think there probably are. Um, are there people who make selfish decisions? Yeah, I do all the time, right? Um, but for the most part, I honestly think that our industry is full of a lot of good people doing the best they can, and
Mm,
as long as they're doing that, I respect that, and I don't have to agree. There's plenty of artists and plenty of people in the industry that I mean, we're just like the rest of the world. We disagree on a lot of things, a lot of faith things, a lot of Jesus things. I'm okay with that. I like that actually, because I think iron sharpens iron in those places. And some of my good friends, we disagree on a lot of things, and so I think that's okay. Um, but um, but yeah, I think we're doing all right, especially post pandemic. I've
mm.
seen a lot less ego. I've seen a lot less greed in most places. This is artists I'm speaking about.
Right.
There's always people who are trying to make a buck um, in different places, but I honestly think we've got an industry full of good people trying to do the best they can.
Now, uh, anything happened to you on tour that was either funny or embarrassing? Like you remember it?
Probably plenty of things. I don't know. Over the
Mm,
years, I've been going so long. I'm trying to think if there's a pretty funny story that I can remember that's really embarrassing. Oh, here's kind of a funny one. We were on a
uh,
plane, flying somewhere, I can't remember, and,
uh,
there was another band, it's an old band, I couldn't figure out who it was, but, like, classic rock band on it with
uh,
us, and, we're all waiting at the carousel for our guitars and bags and things at the end, and this old guy walks up to me, we're talking for a while, and, uh, and I'm like, "So," we're making small talk. I was like, "Well, who do you play for?" And he looks at me, he's like, "Eddie Money, that old fart," he says. And I was like, "Oh, cool." We, have, a little bit more conversation and then leave. Then as we're walking away, all my friends are like, "Dude, that was freaking Eddie Money." And I was like, "Oh my god, are you kidding me?" It's like he looked different than his, picture from the '70s, or the '80s.
He's
Uh,
still touring,
so
right?
I think he died, didn't he?
Did he?
Maybe he didn't. I can't
I
remember.
don't know. We'll look it up after
Did
the
he take us to
show.
paradise? Yeah, we'll have to fact check that. I feel like he did a couple of years ago. Um,
That's
I might be wrong. But yeah, so that was a pretty funny,
who
incident,
who
at least.
who would you like to work with? Who would you like? Maybe you haven't worked with or you enjoy, you
Mm.
just love.
I like just like working with nice people, honestly. And then there's probably some like really big songwriters in the world that I'd love to with, and a bunch. I could say their names, but none of you guys would know who they are.
Oh,
Uh, but um, so some of those people, I've got an idea for my next record of kind of a new crew that I want to work with and do some things with, and so we may try some things out. And really, I just want to, work with my friends and people I like, and tour with my friends and people I like, and I just feel like life's too short to do any of this stuff, um, unless you're just with really great people. So that's what I'm trying to do.
if a genie comes to you or an angel and said, "Okay, God is going to grant you one wish right now," what is it?
Uh, Probably just like financial freedom, so I never have to worry about money, and then I just keep
Mm,
doing the same thing I do. That's probably it. Which,
that's a
you
great
know,
one. That's a great one. Yeah.
I think that's probably what everybody say. Because I feel like honestly, we did really well through the pandemic, like, as a family. I feel like we were blessed in a way, and when I say that, I don't mean financially at all. I mean in the real sense of the word, which mean like wholeness and the process of being made holy. And I feel like my family and I were really made whole during that time, and so my marriage is good, and my kids are good, and everyone is healthy. And so for me, I just want to enjoy this time. And told my wife the other day, I was like, I feel like this might be the best years of our life right now. Like, these might be the
Mm.
times we look back and wish we could go back to. And so I'm just trying to soak it in. And so if somebody gave me $10 million tomorrow, or whatever, I'd still do exactly what I'm doing right now. We'd take a few more vacations. So, you know, I feel like, God has blessed us in a way. He's made us whole, and continues to make us whole and holy in really great ways. And so I just want to lean into that more and more.
That's awesome. Sarah just said, I looked it up. Eddie Money did pass on September 13th, 2019.
See, there we go.
Yeah.
I was right. I'm glad I got it in. I just wish I would have known him.
That's funny. Have you ever been mad at God? Have you ever said frustrated with the Lord?
No.
No.
Mm-mm. I've always separated people and God from a really young age. We had a lot of like, in my extended family, abuse and dysfunction and things like that, and it all wrapped up into the church, which is uh, a really longer than this podcast. But so from an early age, though, I was able to say that's not God, um, and separate it. There were times I didn't want anything to do with church. There are still
Mm.
times when I walk into a place and I think, I think this pastor's more into himself than anything else. And maybe that's a little judgmental, but I've had those moments. and
Oh, me too.
um,
Trust me.
and so uh, but I've always separated God, and I think I probably have a broader view of who and what God is and what he does now. in my life and in the world and the universe, than I ever have. So no, I've never been mad at God, ever.
Now,
Mm-mm.
do you, what do you call it? Uh, if you had to say, okay, you can only be a worship leader at Asbury Church, no more. You can't be on tour. You can't be writing songs with other people. You can only be a worship leader at our church. Would you be happy with that?
No.
No.
Mm-mm. I
Okay.
don't think so,
That's
if I'm honest.
yeah. No, you've been very honest. I love that. I love your yeah, I'm a big fan now, trust me. After just listening to you for this so you came to Christ early. Your grandma was a Christian, your father, your mother and stuff. Have you ever strayed away where you had your moments of bad what do you call it?
I think
Falling
I think
away and
every
coming back?
day I think every day is like a new opportunity to fail in some way and also find God in some way. And so, like, I probably don't subscribe to, like, the idea of, um, salvation and it and finding it like I'm maybe grew up doing, as a young kid, where it's like, "Oh, I did this bad thing, and now I need to rededicate my life to God." And that's I don't really buy into that at this point in my life,
Mm,
whereas I probably did, in school, and so or when I was young. And so I had those moments where, like, I was engaged and that got broke off, and then I was touring full time mainstream music doing dumb stuff. Yeah, for sure. Um, but I think there's like when I look at it now, all I see is grace. You know what I
mm,
mean? So
exactly.
not from me, but for me, from people, from God, um, in all those places. And um, now I don't think I honestly, if I were to articulate it right now, I don't know that anyone or including myself, you, anybody listening to this, could, if they wanted to, escape the grace of God. Um,
Mm,
I think it's, in and through everything. And so, whether we like it or not. So we could
eh,
run away if we want to, but it's gonna chase us down. Uh, so yeah, it's interesting to articulate that way, but, that's how I just did it, so
uh,
I'll keep with
makes
it.
a lot of
I'll own it.
sense. Makes a lot. Let me ask you this: you keep saying you're old, but you're not old. You're still very young. But what do you? What advice would you give a young artist? Maybe he was in your shoes in college and ready to do music and go on tour and all that. What advice do you give him or her?
Ooh, grow where you're planted. A lot of these guys are in churches, and trying to figure that out. That's the best place to learn. Some of the biggest artists in the world, some of the biggest writers in the world, they learned the soul of what they do in church. Whitney Houston learned how to sing how she did because she sang in church. Ryan
Right.
Tedder is the biggest songwriter in the world. He learned the soul behind that music in church. Like, um, there's so many there's so many opportunities in your local church. So if that's where you are, then grow where you're planted. If not, find a community, because there's a bunch of us out there, right? And then music is one of these things. Like the people who don't quit win.
Mm,
You're talented enough. If you have the right mixture of ego, I have to think I'm good enough to do this, which is, some people don't have that within them. So you've got to be a little egotistical, um, but also humble, and know like how good you actually are, uh, and realistic. Work hard. I mean, this is not an easy job. If someone were to tell me all the things I had to do this, I wouldn't have signed up for it.
mm.
But by they opened, uh, persevere. Still love singing to people. I have a hard time singing to like the camera is really where the world is turning now.
Yeah.
And best shot, but in a room with people, I love it. And I think, when it's in and the humility thing, it's like, I love it. I love the ministry of it. I think one of the best to do it. I really do. Um, and still humbled that people invite me to be able to come and do it. As long as I still am good, can do it, and when I do it, I love it. That's the same for you. So,
This
um,
is funny. This is funny because not funny in funny ways, but because the first question I wrote here, first question, but I didn't ask it, but you just touched on it. Says you need ego to go on stage. How do you deal with that? And
yeah.
that's what.
Well, and that's a whole
How do you
thing.
balance it?
Years and years of mistakes, uh, and then keeping people around you that ground you. So touring with guys like Tim and Dustin, who are both so talented in their own right, and then a guy like Tim Timmons, who my introduction is, "Hey, this is Chris, and he can't sing very well," which is so funny.
That's how they
But they keep
introduced
me.
you to him.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's so funny. Uh, but keeping guys and people around you that keep you humble and that kind of thing, and um, it's okay to be confident if you can mix that with humility. Confidence and ego mixed with being a jerk won't get you very far. And so that's years of kind of figuring that out. And I don't always succeed at it. Sometimes I'm a jerk. Um, and I come back and apologize and try again later.
Uh, okay, being an artist, being a singer, you know, being young, doing these tours, there's always girls that want to be groupies, want to hang around you, and all that. How did you deal with that in the past, or do you even have to deal with it now, even in the Christian realm?
I don't deal with it now, but honestly, I've always said this. I had a really great guy in the first version of Stars Go Dim who's taught me how to tour. His name was Joey. And in the craziest times, and there were crazy, crazy times then, um, which with all the things that you're saying, if I looked around and Joey was not there, I knew that I didn't need to be there. And so I learned through watching him, what I should do. But what I found, and this is true in Christian music, this is true in secular music, whatever you want to find, you can find. If
Right,
that's girls, if that's drugs, if that's alcohol, if that's whatever it is, just being an idiot and in your life, you can do that real easy. It doesn't matter what you're doing, right? But if you don't want to find that, it's really easy not to. It's really easy to stay away from it as well. And so you got to put those boundaries up yourself. And there's some guys that struggle with different things, right? Whether it's substance abuse or alcohol or things like that. And so there'll be tours where they're completely dry tours. So no alcohol or anything on a tour. And I've seen this from the Goo Goo Dolls, who were all sober, to Christian tours, who they just had different feelings on it. And in different things, there's guys who won't get their own hotel rooms that always share hotel rooms. So they're never alone in a hotel. Um,
right.
so there's different things that people do to keep themselves accountable in those situations. For me, I've always just been of that mindset, like whatever I wanted to find, I could. I'm not interested in that. It's just as easy to walk away. And so really the most of our things, most of our tours and days look pretty boring. Anymore, I get up and I go run 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 miles or something, in whatever town I'm in, and that's about the height of my day.
What are you working on right now, Chris?
I'm writing for the new record and hopefully be recording for that sometime in this next year. And then just hanging with family. That's it.
So, are you gonna tour once you get the record out,
Yeah,
or
I'll
you
probably do
drop?
something. I've got little spot things. I'm doing like the weekend a month thing at the top of this year for the first 5 or 6 months, and then we'll kind of see what happens.
Perfect. We got 4 minutes. Can you encourage someone who's listening, right? Well, people will listen starting next week. People are watching right now. We have 230 people, and it's on YouTube, it's on LinkedIn, it's on Facebook, it's all over. But also, next week it will go on everything: Spotify, iTunes, all that. What you grew up in the church, you've been a wonderful man of God. I'll give you that title right now from just hearing you the
Mm.
last hour. What advice, what wisdom can you give to someone who's hurting right now, maybe scared, maybe wants to start to do their own, what they feel they're gifted with, but they can't? Just speak to someone and give the Lord the glory for that.
And my encouragement is really simple. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what you've done, what you're in. None of that matters. You were created by the thing through which all things can be made you for a purpose and on purpose. And your life has value. And that's really what a lot of my songs are about. That's why I come and sing and do this stuff anymore. I travel and sing these songs about how you're loved. And it's a simple thing, but there's so many people out there struggling with their identity and struggling with their worth and value. And so if you're listening to this today, I just want you to know that your life has value. And and it's okay to hold the hard things and the goodness of God at the same time. And I think sometimes as Christians, we don't do that very well. But both can be true and are true. That you're made for a purpose. Sometimes life is hard, but you're loved in the midst of it. And so that's my simple encouragement for you guys today.
Where can people go to maybe purchase? I know it's all over. It's all on iTunes and Spotify and everywhere. They can, I want to encourage people, don't just go to YouTube or listen for free. Go purchase his albums. I know we don't make much money from that, but how can how can people, my fans, my followers, people who are listening, can be of a blessing to you? How can we be that way?
Well, you can follow me on Facebook, on Instagram. I have a TikTok now, which is kind of a thing blowing up, and so it's just Stars Go Dim on all of those things. And I'm posting songs and things all the time. You'll be able to keep up with me and see what I'm doing. Come to my shows. That's the best
Yes.
way to support me. So if I'm playing in your area, come out. You can go to the website starsgodim.com and see the CDs and some merch and things like that. But just keep up with me when I come in and come hang and see me sing and engage with us online. We'd love to see how the songs are impacting your lives.
I would love to have you at one of my Laughter for All concerts, the big events we do, the arena events in California. So I would love to bring you to California. So I want to
Let's go,
thank
baby.
that would be great. I thank you so much for taking the time to be with me and just you're just full of wisdom. I really, really now I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan. Just appreciate your humility, your personality, your perspective, your fatherhood mentality, your husbandhood mentality, if those are words. But I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And you have a great night, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you so much, Chris.
All
That
right.
was Chris
Listen,
Cleveland, ladies and gentlemen, from Stars Go Dim. Go listen to his songs, to follow him on TikTok. Follow him on. We are on TikTok right now, so it's the whole thing is on TikTok live. Also, you can go to YouTube. You can go to Facebook. You can follow him. Find out where he's going to be performing next and just go. It'll be a great night. I was performing with them and I was enjoying. I mean, I really went back into the audience, which I normally don't do, and I sat and I watched and listened. It's great. You're gonna love this man. Go, please follow him. And if you want to support them, when they are off road, if you're a believer who's like, "Oh Lord, it's the end of the year. Who can I support?" You can find a way to get a hold of Chris Cleveland Stars Go Dim and just send a gift. Just send a gift. So that's all I'm asking you guys. If you want to send something to Laughter for All, we're a nonprofit. You can before the end of the year. We just had our fundraising gala last night. It was good. So that's it. I'm not good with asking for money for anybody, so I blew that up. But anyway, love you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week. Live with Naz will resume tomorrow night and hopefully Thursday night to get back since we weren't with you last night. So we'll see you tomorrow night on Live with Naz on Facebook. Episode number, I think, 486 or 87. Love you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless you. Have a good night. All right. Let's close this. End now. And